Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So let me just check if I'm audible. Guys, am I audible?
Yep.
Requesting my team to confirm.
Hi, you
Yes,
are.
thank you. Okay, Salva sir, thank you so much, Deepak. Welcome again, Salva sir, Praveen sir. Thank you everyone for joining in. To all the students. It's amazing. The number is 32 and counting. Actually, close to 40 now and counting. I'm sure in next couple of minutes we'll have 100 numbers that will be touching 100 and even more for that matter, because this CEP module 2 has been going extremely successfully. And what we have been seeing in quizzes, in assignments is actually extraordinary in what we have achieved in last 2 weeks, and the kind of enthusiasm that you guys are showing uh, by submitting those responses, by submitting your assignments, by submitting your answers in the quiz. So first of all, you need to understand that we are not worried about you submitting wrong answers in the assignment, uh, but we would be rather more worried if you're not doing the assignment at all, or if you are just taking a shortcut, copying the assignment from somewhere and putting it up. So some of the things that we will come to in a couple of minutes. But before that, I know most of you would already be waiting to see the leaderboard of the last quiz that we have. So let me just share my screen and begin with the honors of the IBC CEP leaderboard. Okay, so just to confirm, I hope my screen is visible.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, so so couple of names here. The students who are seeing their names regularly on the table will know definitely the names that are repeating for the past 3 sessions. But first of all, I want to say I want to congratulate the top 3 students here: Ritika Singh, Rakshita Sakamuri, and Shri Pujita Thamma for achieving the highest marks. But furthermore, we have seen gradual progress of number of students who have touched the 15 mark that gets you on the leaderboard. So guys, just understand that in the first session, after the first session's quiz, we had just 9 people who touched the 15 mark, 15 and above. And we actually have seen after that our numbers are continuously increasing. So make sure that you keep up with whatever you are doing. And continuing further with the first 3 names, we have now Kunapaneni Sahiti. Congratulations to you. Great job. Raghunandan V. Great job. Tarela Shivakumar. Well done. Sudarshan Reddy. Chenupalle, 17 out of 20. Again, it's extremely hard to get these scores, but I'm amazed to see the new names that I'm recognizing now. We have Shreya Dhondi, uh, Kevin Shankar S, Sushmita, again 17 out of 20 for all the 3 guys. Congratulations to you. Shiva Prasad, Gotimukala, 16 out of 20. Arakansha, Bhuvan Sai Krishna Pusala, Shubhangi Sulakhe, Vasant A, Bharat Kalyan Gadila, all 16 out of 20. Good work, guys. Keep it up. K. Vimal Kumar and Simhadri Venkat Vivek. Guys, 15 out of 20. Great job. Just keep working hard, and the names will keep changing. Some names might keep repeating because we have seen in the last few sessions. I and Praveen sir were discussing the same. Praveen sir, you want to add some points over here about
Yeah,
the
no,
students?
no,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Guys, excellent job you guys have been doing so far. Ritika Singh, I see you getting the top score second time in a row, I guess. Maybe you had got the top score in the quiz 1 and
Yeah,
in the
that's
quiz
true,
3
sir.
as well. So excellent job, Ritika. In fact, everybody, whoever is here, and people who were not able to make it to the list, I think you still have plenty of opportunities. But more importantly, what I want to convey to all of you, that what you are going through right now, a journey by IBC Media, is a gateway to becoming one of the most successful Web3 developers. And why I'm saying that? Typically, if you really see the blockchain programming world, there are two systems, right? One is Ethereum based system and another is Rust based system. Now, Rust-based system is gaining prominence, and whatever you are learning here, they are going to be vital for you to get into building so many projects in all the blockchains which are dependent on Rust programming language. Now, right now, we have, while we train you on Rust, we are also working on several opportunities for you. For example, we are working very closely with some of our sponsors who have internship opportunities. Now, these internship opportunities, depending upon what you demonstrate, could be a paid internship, number one. Number two, you will get an opportunity to work in one of the best places, or one of the best companies in the blockchain world. Now, imagine what exactly is that going to do to your profile. So what you are doing right now, what you may be thinking that, okay, I am just understanding ownership, I'm just understanding Rust Struct, for example, I am just understanding some of these small things right now, but overall what you are building is going to be very significant. And I'm sure Selva sir will also agree with me that you are laying the foundation of becoming a great Web3 developer. And we definitely, when we recommend your names for these internship, when we ask you to kind of look at these possibilities, we definitely will look at how exactly you have taken these sessions, how exactly you have been performing in these quizzes, how, whether you really have been submitting your assignments. All those things will definitely be very important while we kind of work on providing you opportunities in terms of internships, even in terms of placements, even in terms of your profile being shared with many people. So I think Deepak, that's what I wanted to say here, and I definitely wanted to congratulate all of you for having displayed fantastic understanding of what was taught in the last class, sorry. And today also, what we are going to be covering, we would expect you to display similar level of commitment in the class, and demonstrate that performance in the quiz as well. So thank you, Deepak.
Absolutely, sir. Extremely grateful that I know that being here and spending time and leaving some of your work is is not easy for you, but I'm really glad that you could come in and just share your thoughts over here. So, guys, uh, everything that sir has said as of now has to be taken extremely seriously, because understand that what you are getting here, uh, the kind of exposure, the kind of information, the kind of access to Q&As, not just in the live sessions, but also in the Discord. So this is one of a kind education bootcamp, right? Virtual bootcamp. So scrutinize the entire opportunity and follow all the points that Praveen sir has added, and obviously follow to what our star expert, Mr. Silva Raju, and obviously Deepak Chaudhary do while the sessions carry on. So I'll just pass on now to Deepak again to discuss some of the important questions of the last session. Deepak, you want to continue the conversation ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, guys. Let me share my screen. Okay, first of all, congratulations for coming on the leaderboard. Okay, so let's discuss some of the questions where most of you find difficulty. In that, this is the question. What this question is saying is, what does the below statement infer? That S1 is, we are defining the string and we are assigning S1 into the S2. So we in the previous session we have seen that there is three things. One is the pointer, length, and capacity. And if we assigning the S1 to S2, this all three things copied into the S2 that are available on the stack. Okay. Now the question is 8th one. Okay, this question is, we are defining the main function. That's 10. Okay, let me show you by running this code. This is the question. So what this is telling is, we need this 10 to be a Boolean. Right now we have the 10 data type of 10 is I32. Okay, next question is 10th. Yeah, we are defining this S1, S2. Yeah, here what we are doing is we are defining a S1 and we are passing S1 to S2. So what we have done is we transfer the ownership of S1 to S2, and now we are accessing the S1. That is no more. Okay, so the correct answer is error. If we try to access this, that is, and the ownership is already transferred to the S2. Now the next question is 12. Okay, what we are doing is we again S1, we are length, finding the length, then yeah, this code will gives the error. Why? Because what we are doing is we are calculating the length and we are passing into the I32. This length will give us the U size and we are trying to convert it to the I32, which is not possible. That is why the correct answer is none of the above. Next question is this. We are defining again the string, and in previous session we have discussed that at a time we cannot have a mutable reference of the same value. Like here what we are doing is we are mutably reference s 2 times, which can't be possible. So this will give error. Okay, now this is, we have seen this comment. Let me share. You can see this is usable, we can do it, this is valid. And if we want to something, type the annotations or give the context what we are doing, we can use this comment. We can use this comment also. So the correct answer for this is hash. Okay, also guys, I'm seeing that most of you are cheating in assignments, so there is no benefit of doing this. We are giving you these assignments so that you can also know where you are lagging, so that you can work on it and improve that part. And in the first session I clearly said that if you face any problem in this, we are here, so you can reach out to me anytime. I'm there for you, but don't do this, please. Silva sir, can you add more on this?
Yeah, so the whole point, the purpose of the assignment fails. It will be the purpose if you are trying to copy, programs from here and there. So the whole point is you cannot learn any technology without burning your fingers. Don't worry. See, we never said that you have to submit only the correct answers, right? So even if you're getting errors also, try to debug that, because debugging goes a long way in any developer's life, right? It's a trait that you have to, debugging is a tenet that you have to develop, because it's part and parcel of development. Okay, so please don't copy code from here and there. The whole point is that you have to do it on your own. Then only you'll get the confidence of actually being able to write code all by yourself, and and also be able to think through a solution in a logical manner. Otherwise the whole exercise becomes futile. Okay, so I would request not to do that. Instead, try to solve it by yourself, or the max that I would like you to do is go to Rust book and Rust by example. There's sufficient information there, read through it, and then you submit the assignment. Okay, so I hope see, then only that seriousness of actually doing the assignment is there. Okay, because you have to understand, it's very, very important that you burn your fingers. Without that, you cannot really become good developers, right? And we want all of you to be the best developers, not just good developers. Okay. So please, feel free in case if you're having errors. So in fact, Deepak, did you see any activity on the Discord related to programming?
Related to programming, no.
No. So you see, this is where you are not utilizing the resources which are available at your disposal. Okay. So it's very important that you actually make use of the facilities that is being provided to you. Everybody is, busy here, and all of us, apart from other duties, we are actually staying 24/7 for you guys to support you in every possible manner. Okay. Right. So it's important that you try and solve the assignment all by yourself. Okay. Please appreciate the fact that you have to do it all by yourself, right? It's only then that you will gain experience of and confidence of building code all by yourself. Okay, so it's absolutely important, because tomorrow on the production floor there's nobody to help, and you have to find solutions on your own. Okay, yeah, Google and Stack Overflow, definitely they can help, no doubt about that. But what happens is, if you already get all the pre-baked code and put it as an assignment and submit as an assignment, okay, then it's essentially effortless. And with no effort like that, you cannot master the language, and you cannot become good developers. So please bear that in mind. Okay, Praveen sir, any thoughts?
No, absolutely. I think what Silva sir has said is very, very important. Like one thing very important, what Silva has told that you should keep in mind, that debugging is should come to you naturally, and you should struggle. If you are not struggling, then it is a problem, right? I mean, you have to use all the resources which are available on the internet. Nowadays, if you type an error message in Google, you will get answers that people have faced those issues. I mean, you could do that. And in fact, I also try programming for your information. And what I feel many times, that there is a process to do that. Basically, once you kind of go and once you are struggling with something, and you should have your own rules. And Selva Saab maybe may agree with me, but or he may have his own opinion also. My opinion is that you should fix a time, that I will struggle for maybe half an hour or 40 minutes or 1 hour, to solve something. And once I am not able to do that, then I will go and look for some references. For example, look for the documentation of the language that you are working on. And then maybe if that is also not helping you, then you go and look for some ready-made answers. Even that is not there, then you go and come to experts like Selva and Deepak Chaudhary in our Discord. Okay, use the Discord. So you should definitely, it should not happen that, okay, you are stuck somewhere and you go and ask somebody or immediately look for an answer. Then your learning curve will become very, very slow. And believe me, these pain points or these pain times will make you a good developer. And I think it is pretty natural process in everything in the life, in my opinion. If your life is easy, then believe me that you are not making progress. If you are making your life difficult constructively by all these taking these challenges, then only you are growing in your life with respect to learning. And I was reading somewhere, the more you learn, the more you earn, and there is no second thought on that. And I think there cannot be a better place than Web3 where this thing applies very, very directly. So I agree with Silva, and I would request you to learn, struggle, and become a better developer organically, not by taking help. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I have one more input. Like if you go on YouTube also, there are a lot of videos that suggest use. Have you heard of the Chat GPT? So they are showing how to build entire code bases using ChatGPT simply by putting up certain queries, and ChatGPT gives you entire source code. See, the whole point behind this is it will actually make it faster, but you don't know what is going on inside the code unless you write the code yourself. So when you say, for instance, if you're using Stack Overflow where code snippets are given, see, you have to understand something. Somebody has solved a problem. Okay, that person is also a human being. So even you can do that. And when you do it all by yourself, there is always a possibility. You say you might come up with a solution which is totally unique and much better than what people have already done. So by taking this existing code, you are killing your ability to code all by yourself. Okay, that creativity, because coding is a science and an art. It starts as a science, and as you progress, it becomes an art to write code, which is probably the best possible code that you could probably write. So therefore, it is important that you don't use pre-baked code. You have to understand the nuances of how each and every statement of the program actually works. That is where the expertise lies. So please, I would request again, don't copy. Even if you make mistakes, we are not judging you by your mistakes. Okay, we are judging you by the fact that you have made an honest effort at actually solving the problem.
Absolutely. So wonderful words from Selva sir. It starts as a science and it becomes an art. You should take that to your heart, I guess. And Selva sir, I think we can begin the session now.
Sure.
And guys, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section. You can address the queries of this session if you don't want to address it here. Maybe you can put the questions in Discord as well. We will be responding to you anywhere you ask these questions. So feel free to ask your doubts, raise queries, and try to get in as much depth as possible because it's all for you. Selva sir, over to you.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So let us start today's session. So let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So a couple of things. So today we'll discuss a little bit of the slice type, okay, which we did not discuss in entirety in the last session. And today, more importantly, we're going to talk about structs and basic traits, okay? Right. So let's see. So first off, as I mentioned, okay, I'll be discussing strings spread over a couple of sessions, okay? Because I don't want to bog you down with too much of information. As I mentioned, because the strings are handled a little differently from other programming languages that you come across, okay? Because of the low-level nature. So the way Rust strings are handled. So the another point is that we will also discuss about the Rust strings from a UTF standard, okay? So we will be talking about the UTF standard also later on, and you will understand how strings are internally represented and how it is used and all those things. Okay, right. So primarily, okay, when it comes to strings, in Rust, okay. So you have two different types. One is the string type, okay, and the other is the string slice. Okay, so this is string type is represented by string, and string slice, which is represented by okay, okay. So we have to understand what these are, and slices are quite important, okay, because they are commonly used. So let's say if I create a string, okay, let's say S1 is assigned string from, and then give ABCD. As you can see, this is of type string. Okay, it is actually a structure. Anyway, we'll come to that. Okay, so a structure is a you can call this as a type. Okay, and if you give hard-coded string, let S2 is assigned A, B, C, D like this. Okay, then it is represented as a reference to str, which is basically we call, so this is a string type. So S1 is string type, and this is S2 is string slice. Okay, so you have to understand the basic difference between these two. Okay, so we'll refer to the Rust book to explain this, and the concept is pretty simple. Okay, so essentially we already know that you have a string over there. So see here. Okay. So okay, let's see. Okay. So slice lets you reference a contiguous sequence of elements in a collection rather than the whole collection. Okay, a slice is a, so again remember, a slice is a kind of reference that does not have ownership. So this is very important. This is very important. Okay, so now for instance, okay, let's say let me just show you here. Okay, so if I come back up here, use the print line macro. This one is this one, and print line is S2 is S2. And if we run this, so if you see here, you let me just change the string. Let's call this as XYZ, something like this. So if you look at it, so S1 is ABCD and S2 is XYZ. Now, from a usage standpoint, you really don't find much of a difference between these two, right? But internally, there is a difference. And that is what you really need to understand. So basically what happens is, I have, let's say, I'll create another string. So let's say, let text is assigned. Okay. This is some text. Okay. And I'll create this as a string. Okay. Okay. Now, if I say, I'll create a variable called slice, okay, and assign it, say, text. Now the question is, what will happen? Slice even though I'm calling it a slice, it is actually of type string because coercion has taken place. Right. So basically, because the source text is actually a string, the slice will also become a string. We don't know this. So now suppose if I want to define this slice to be a slice itself. Okay, so what I can do, slice, and I say it is slice, and I give it text. Right. So what happens? You see, considering borrowing here. Okay, so actually this is when you say slice. Okay, what does this slice contain? So what happens is you cannot take some text, okay, and then assign it directly to a slice. You cannot do that. Instead, what you will have to do is basically string slice is a sort of a pointer. You need to copy the pointer from the string into this. So how do I do that? So I can always use a reference in here. Okay, and if I give reference, okay, so this is again unused variable, so that error is coming up. So what I'll do is I'll just put up the annotation. Unused variables. And if you try to print both the text and the slice, okay, text is text and slice is slice. Okay. And if I have to run this, see that this is some text, this is some text. Okay. However, slice means when you say slice, okay, it means you are trying to access a part of something. So it's just like a slice in a loaf of bread. Okay. So right now, since I've taken the reference of the text itself and I have assigned it to str, what happens is that this str, okay, the string slice, okay, is referring to the entire string. But now using this slice, I can actually go and point to certain specific, let's say character in the string. Okay. So if I say, so instead of this, if I say, okay, I want text. So you see, you can use indexing inside of the string. Okay. So they said index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So let's say if I say text 5, okay, and save this. Okay, the string cannot be indexed by integer. Okay, and trait index integer is not implemented for the string. So what you have to do is, let's say 5 to 7. Okay, if I do it like this. So you have to give a range of characters. Okay, so you can use the ranges to define the characters. So from index 5 up to but not equal to 7. And now if I run this, the slice is. So that means what we are doing, we are accessing a part of the string. So it starts from index 5, okay, goes on up to 7, but not equal to 7. So 5 and 6. So what is index 5 and 6? So this, if you see here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 is I and then 6 is S. And that's what you're getting. And in fact, we can also see, if I say, length is, okay, and then say text dot length. Okay. And here also length is, and then slice dot length. And now if we run this code, see, the whole string is 17 characters long, and the slice is just 2 characters long. So basically, slice is pointing into the original, okay, string without taking the ownership. Now that's the most important thing. Okay, right? So now what I would do, I would request is that I'll just take this, page address, and I'll put it in the chat window. And go through this page. And if you have any issues, you can always, okay, contact us. Okay, just like your strings. So if you want to create a string slice, you have to put this ampersand before the string variable, and then followed by a range of it. Okay. Now, just like you have string slices, you can also have slices to arrays as well. Okay. So, for instance, I think they have given it here. Yeah. Okay. So let's define an array and check this out. Okay. Array slices. And now let's define an array. ARR is defined as 10, 20. Okay. And now if I want to print it out, line ARR, and then I can display this. Okay. So I have to use the bigger print. And now if I try to run this, and let's find this out.
We have a doubt from Abdul.
Yeah.
I think he needs to change something in the code, but he didn't specify.
Can we assign the text to another slice now? Yes. You can. Okay. You can create any number of slices because they don't take ownership. They're just basically references inside the string. Okay. You can create any number of them. Okay. So let's run this. See, array is getting printed. You can also print array slices. So the slice syntax is available with the arrays also. Okay. So let's say let array slice 1, or let's call it as AS1, which is a slice. And how do you take a slice? You simply put an ampersand ARR, and then you give a range of values. Okay, that is indexes. So I have index from 0 to 4, right? So let's say I take 1 to 4 or 1 to 3. Okay. And if I try to print this, here's one. See, so what is the index again? 1 to 3. That means 1 and 2. So index 1 and 2. Okay. You can also use, now if you say let AS2 another slice, this time what I'm doing is I'm saying ARR. I'm not giving the starting index. Okay. And I'm giving the terminating index. Let's say I have 3. Okay. And if I print AS2, so when you don't give the starting, it is automatically, it will default to 0. So starting from index 0 all the way up to, but not including 3. So 0, 1, and 2. So I should get 10, 20, and 30, right? Okay. See, 10, 20, and 30. Similarly, from a given index, you want to go all the way up to the end. Then you can use, so you don't have to mention the ending index. So let AS3 is sign reference to array. And then I say, okay, starting from index, let's say 2, and then 2. It would mean starting from index 2 all the way to the end. So starting from index 2, that is 30, right? So 30, 40, 50 is what I should be getting. Right? So AS3. And then we run this. See, 30, 40. So this way, without actually copying the data, you are having pointers to point to a certain region within the original collection of values. It can be an array or it can also be a string. Right? Okay. So any questions there? Which code you found unique? So you can just dismiss this question, Deepak. Okay. Any questions related to slices, please? Okay. So now let's talk about structures. Okay. Abdul, printing elements, leaving the middle element. Yeah, probably you can take this up as a programming challenge. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. And the reason being why I'm saying this is because you see, I cannot, write entire code here to do something of that sort. Okay. The reason being the dearth of time. Okay. I have to explain all the conceptual things, and then you have to read through the documentation, the Rust book, and then with that knowledge, you can actually write. And in case if you are having any issue with that, you can always contact us through Discord. Okay. Can we print reverse of using slice? Okay. Right. So if you want to do that, okay, if you want to do that, you'll have to come with. So for instance, if you want to print a range of values, so first thing is, okay, we'll come to that a little later. Okay. The reason being we have to introduce the concept of structures, right? So I would basically go ahead and start with structures, and then later I'll come to it. Okay. So you can actually look for ranges, Rust ranges, and then from there you can get the idea. Okay. Okay. Now again, remember, if you are coming from Python background, okay, the way ranges work in Python and Rust, they are similar but not exactly the same. Okay. So there will be functional differences between these two, right? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. For instance, and I give it a range, say 1 to 10. So, okay. So you'll get 1 to 4. And missing string. Oh, I'm sorry. Now, ranges cannot be displayed like this. Let's try doing this. Okay, and then we run this. Okay, so it's going to print 1 to 5 only, like this, because range is a special data type. Okay, so you can read upon the Rust ranges to understand better. Okay, right. Now coming to structures, where do you use structures? First off, okay. Now structures are the ones that are used primarily to group related data into one single entity. That is the whole point, because they are logically related to each other. Like for instance, let's say I want to create a list of students, and every student has got, let's say, a roll number and a score and a name. So one way is that you could create individual arrays of roll numbers and then the scores and then the names, but then handling those and combining them together will become a big hassle, right? So it is better that we know that a set of name, roll number, and score are all related together. So what you need to do is you have to have some way of representing a logical relationship between these completely disparate looking things. Because what happens is, in the real world, the name of the student, the roll number of the student, and the score of the student, they're all related together because they belong to a student. So there is no point in creating 3 different variables. Okay. Instead, you just combine them together and then use them as one single entity. And that is where actually structs come into play. Okay. Let me show you the documentation there. Okay. So basically, it's a custom data type that lets you package together named multiple related values. You see here, related values. Okay. That make up a meaningful group. It's a similar thing like struct you have in C and C++. Okay, it's the same thing. So in Rust, how do you define a struct? So this is how you define. You use the struct keyword followed by the name of the struct and then give all the fields. So these are the individual fields. Okay, individual fields. So if you look at it, they might look similar to your tuple also. Okay, now let's create a tuple. Let's call this as let okay. Let student is assigned. Let's say I put a name. Okay. A, B, C, D, and I give the score is 3.5, and then sorry, the roll number. So let's say 101, and 3.5 is, let's say, the CGPA. Okay. So to access the individual elements, I'll have to use, because this is a tuple, right? It's a tuple. Now, because it's a tuple, I'll have to use the indexing, okay, dot 0, dot 1, dot 2. So in your code, when you're utilizing this, okay, you can write entire code with that. But the problem with tuple is that these individual elements, okay, have to be accessed using the indexing notation. Dot 0, student dot 0, student dot 1, student dot 2, okay, which is not convenient. Convenient in a sense, when somebody is reading your code, they will need to know exactly, hey, dot 0 means this element, and dot 1 means that element, and dot 2 means that element. Okay. So tuple has this issue. So for simpler cases, tuples are fine. But if you really want to create a named type, then in that case, this is not good enough. So what we do is we can create structures and then we can use that. Okay. And structs you would need to define before main so that it is available or it is visible throughout the program. So let's say I'll create a struct. Okay, and I'll call this as. So generally structs are defined using Pascal case, which would mean that we create using like this. Okay. And then give the fields inside. Now you can also have empty structs, okay, which don't have any fields or data there, okay, and which are called as unit structs. They have their own, applications, right? But we will stick to ones which have actually data. So let's say I want to create a student, okay, and then I say, okay, so I need to have a name, which will be of type string, okay. If you see there. So likewise, so these fields are separated by commas. Okay. And then I have roll number, which is an I32. So you have to mention the types. Okay. The fields need to be mentioned with types. So type annotation has to be given. CGPA, let's say this is F32. Okay. The last field may or may not have a comma. Okay. Right. So if you say yes, quickly lines, okay, struct student is never constructed. So that's fine. We are not actually instantiated. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Now how to create a struct? So this is declaring a struct. And to instantiate, we will instantiate it inside the main function. So how do you do that? So instantiation is pretty simple. So I can say let student1 is assigned, and then use the name of the struct student. Okay. And then give the fields the values. So you'll have to mention, okay, so name is, okay. Now you can see I'm using another way of doing it. Say, okay, A, B, C, D. But then you'll get an error. Okay. I'll show you. So roll number is 101. And the CGPA is 3.5. Okay. And see, you're getting this because this is a string slice. Okay. So what I can do is I can use dot to string. So using the dot to string, what happens is this string slice will be converted to a string type. Okay. And put a semicolon after this. Right. Now you can print it out. So print line st1 is, again you'll get an error if you do it like this. Okay, because again you need a debug print. Okay, so you'll have to use question mark. So doesn't implement debug. So what you have to do is you have to use derived debug for using this print statement. Okay, so what you do is at the top, derive okay, you have to use derived debug annotation. Okay. So student has derived implementation thread debug, but I'll have to add this one red code as well. This is ST1 is, and then student type with name, roll number, and CGPA. Okay. And now you can actually access the individual elements. Okay. So suppose I just want to display the name of the student. So name of student is this. And how do you do that? You say st1 dot and then name. This is also clear. So this is exactly the same way you would use structs in C, C++ now, right? So if I run this now, I can see the name of the student coming back. Okay. Now suppose at some point in time I want to, okay, let's say change the CGPA, okay, to say 3.9. So let's say to do that, is st1 dot CGPA is assigned 3.9. Okay. Let's see what is happening. st1.cgpa is not declared as mutable. So if you want to make changes to the structure, so even the structures are immutable by default. Okay. Structures are also immutable by default. If you want to make changes to any of the fields, okay, then in that case, you will have to define the structure to be mutable. Now, one very important thing, you cannot make an individual field inside the structure as mutable. The entire structure has to be either mutable or immutable. So when a structure is mutable, all the fields become mutable. Okay, so it's always all or none when it comes to mutability. So if you want to make changes, so what to do is we just need to put the keyword mute in here. And now the CGP has changed. So let's print it out and see. Okay. As you can see here, now the same student object is having the CGPA 3.9. Okay. Right. Any question here, please? Again, remember, when you put a mute keyword, the entire structure becomes mutable. Okay. Therefore, each and every field inside the, inside the structure is mutable now. So you can change any of these fields. You cannot make an individual field as mutable. Okay. That's a rule that you need to follow and understand. Okay. Any question here, please?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we have.
Can we use multiple structures at once? Yes, you can. Can you borrow a single field in the student? Okay, so borrowing works very differently, Mohammed, when it comes to the structure. Okay, so how did you stop the warnings? Okay, so to stop the warnings, I put allow dead code. And to use structures with the print line, you have to use derived debug. But again, remember, there is a difference here. You see here, you are having this. So if you put, let's say, here, okay, it will not work. So for derived debug, you have to remove this exclamation symbol. Okay. So I'll just take these 3 lines of code and I'll put it in chat window. You can use that. Okay. Right. So now what happens if I pass a student, okay, into a function? So let's say I define a function, okay, say show student name. And what it does, it takes in a student object. Okay. So S is a student. And it uses print line. So name is S dot name. Okay, so you can actually pass a student and say this, and let's run this and see. Oh, I am not calling this function. I have to call this function, right? So let's say so instead of this print line, what I'll do is I'll use show student name, and I'll pass the student ST1. The moment I do that, I start getting errors in here. Why? Again, because I'm passing in a structure. Okay, structure is also a complex type. It's a reference type. So essentially what happens, again, remember, the actual object is in heap. Only the ST1, the variable, is in the stack. So what is happening? The ownership has now gone over to this variable. So ST1 is no longer the owner. So after calling this function, if you try to use this, it's not going to work. Okay, because ST1, the ownership of that object, this object that you have, has already changed hands. And therefore, ST1 has become invalid, basically. If you see here, assigned to part of moved value ST1. Right? So this problem will crop up again. It's not really a problem. You need to understand, whenever you are passing in some complex type into a function, what you're doing is you're changing ownership. Okay. So the question is how to avoid this. So in order to do this, so what you need to do is you have to pass in, you should not take a student, but instead you should always take a reference to a student. And in here, you pass a reference to the student. So when you pass reference, okay, you're giving temporary. So basically this is borrow happening. Ownership is not changing hands. Okay, so it basically this borrowing, what happens is when you borrow, S takes a temporary ownership, uses it inside this function, and then hands it back to ST1. So now ST1 is still valid after this function call is over. So now if you run this code, there you go. So name is coming up. This name is coming from the function call, and ST1 is still a valid object. And now you see that CGP has changed to 3.9. Okay. So this is something, whenever you use functions and structures, okay, you need to remember that you have to essentially, what you have to do is you need to understand that ownership changes will happen. So therefore, whenever you're writing functions and you're calling them, just keep that in mind, that ownership and borrowing is at play. So whether this ownership is changing hands or not, or you don't want ownership to change hands, but instead give basically use borrowing. Borrowing is nothing but temporary ownership. Okay, so these things you have to keep in mind. And once you do that, once you write a couple of programs, it will become very natural to you. The reason initially you'll be making some mistakes with the functions, and with structures and complex types is that you're not used to this mechanism, okay, from coming from other language backgrounds, right? So when you're working with Rust, whenever you use functions, always remember whether you want ownership change or not. That is another extra question you need to answer yourself. Okay, if ownership changing hands is okay with you, go ahead. If not, always use the borrowing. And how your borrowing is done? Borrowing is done through references. Okay. Any question here, please? Okay. So let's say I want to change the contents. Okay, through a function. Anyway, so I already have this mutable, right? So what I can do is, okay, let's say I want to increment the roll number. Increment roll number. Again, I know there is no practical use case of this. Nobody would want to do increment the roll numbers and change the roll number of a student. Okay. So again, S is a student. And what I want to do is, let's say s dot roll number plus equal to. But because I'm making changes, what happens? Cannot assign to s dot roll as s is not declared as mutable. Okay, so what you do is you need to make this as mutable. Sorry. Okay. So when I make this as mutable, it's compiling all right. Now see something happens. Let's say, okay. Increment roll number and I pass in the ST1, which is fine by the way. But then again, you run into this problem. Because student is what is getting passed, so ownership change is happening. Because of the ownership change, ST1 will become invalid and again you cannot increment this or you cannot change the CGPA. Okay, so what you should do? You should use borrowing. So you put sand here. Okay. Right. And here. Okay, so let's just run this. So again, consider removing the borrow. So here what you're saying is it's actually a reference to a mutable. Okay, here what happened? Mutable is okay. So it's a reference and it's mutable. Cannot assign s dot row to behind a reference. Okay, S is a reference. Now you see this is another problem. So when it is a reference, you cannot do it just like this. You will have to dereference it. Okay, and then increment it. Which means how do you do the dereference? Okay. So I can allow to say star. Now you're dereferencing it. Okay, so I-32 cannot be dereferenced. Right? Cannot assign this to this is all. Well, at times even I make mistakes. Right. So you have to pass in a reference to a mutable student. Okay. Now here what is expected? Yeah. Because I'm passing, so I cannot pass a immutable reference. I have to pass a mutable reference. So you see how verbose Rust is. So if you want to pass a mutable reference in here, you have to explicitly put mute against the reference object. Okay. Okay. So now let's run this. There you see, roll number has changed. Okay, so let's see what is the question. Can we change the type of structure after initialization? Abdul, this is not possible in any language. Unless you have a dynamically typed language. Okay, because Rust is strongly typed, you cannot do that. Okay, you cannot do that. Okay. I hope that answers your question. Because this is statically typed. So obviously you cannot change the types during runtime. Okay. That is literally impossible. Okay. Any other question, please?
We can continue, sir.
Yeah. So there's one thing. Now what we're going to do is let's see. Okay. So what is field init shorthand? Yeah. So you can also write a function to create a student object. So like say, for instance, here you have the build user, okay, wherein you can pass in and then you can actually create an object and then pass it back in. Okay, so let's say I want to a function create student. It takes in a name, okay, as string. It takes in roll number, 32, and it takes in a CGPA. F32. However, what it does, it actually returns a new object. So obviously, I'll have to give a return type. And what is the return type? Returning a book student. Okay. So how do you create? You simply say student. You give the name. So let's say the name is XYZ dot toString. I'm sorry. The roll number is 1, 2, 3, and the CGPA is 3.2. Again, remember, I'm not putting a semicolon here because this becomes an expression and this becomes the return value, right? If I put a semicolon in here, I'll have to use a return statement explicitly. Okay. So now let's create a student. So I'll say, okay. Let student 2 is assigned. Okay. Create student and I pass in the name. Okay. So name is, say, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I'm so sorry. This has to be name. Actually, I have hard coded it. No, my bad, my bad. Okay. And so, and I want to create this student name. The name I'm setting it as XYZ dot toString. Roll number is 1, 2, 3, and the score is 3. Okay. And in here, I can just print st2 is okay. Right. So now let's run this and see if it is working. There you go, XYZ, roll number 1, 2, 3. So you can actually create variables like this. So suppose, for instance, I have, and generally what I tend to do is I don't write it on a single line. I always put it like this on separate lines for better readability. Okay. I usually write it like this for better readability. Now, one thing I want to show you here. Okay. So let's say I have, say I write name, and of course these are just parameter names. So obviously I can put name in here. Here, okay, and everything is just fine. However, there's one thing that you can do. If the left hand side and the right hand side have the same names in a structure, then you don't need to write name is assigned name, then roll number is roll number, CGPA score, CGPA score, so that is fine. So here in this case, you can simply write the whole thing like this. So I'll just keep this code also here. And I can shorten it by simply writing name. Like this. So if your right side value has the same name as the field name, so you can just write the name itself here. This will automatically become the same as this. And you can see everything is working fine. There are no errors. You can even run it and see. Okay. There's one thing. Also, when it comes to initialization, okay. So suppose I want to create another student object. Okay. As ST2, that is with CGPA 3.3. Okay. There are two ways of doing it. So what I will do, I'll just copy this code. So this is ST3, and I'm not going to use. Okay. Right. So what you can do is I can say, okay, student, and I can give the name as, let's say, dummy dot string, and I say okay, roll number is assigned 555, and the score, the CGPA is assigned 3.3. And I'll just print it out. You see what I've done? Basically the same CGPA. Okay. Now, what I can do is, if I run this code, see, I'm getting the name dummy, roll number 555, CGP. Now, there is a situation like, for instance, I want to copy the data. So one way of doing it is, okay, so this is one way, okay. You explicitly give all the values. Okay. So this is, let's call this as method 1. Okay. Explicit values. Okay. And then method 2 is copy data from ST2. Okay. So here, what I'm doing is, for ST3, I say, okay, get the value from ST2. Dot CGP. You can always do it. Right? So we are copying data from ST2. Okay. So when you do that, and when we run this, see, we are getting all the values in there. So explicitly copying data from this. But there is a shorthand. Okay. And that shorthand is, that would be your third method. So method 3, okay, copy data, but this time around we will say copy all data from ST2 and customize the required fields. So what we can do is, I can just give the name and the roll number, which is different. For CGP, instead of doing it like this, I can simply say .st2. So what it means, take all the data from ST2, put it here, okay, but avoid all the fields for which the values are given here. So basically what will happen, I have name, roll number, and the CGPA. So from ST2 only CGPA will get copied, and rest of the fields will be initialized with these values. So copy all the data and then customize. So this is where the customization is happening. Okay. And this is where the entire data is getting copied. So suppose if I remove these two lines and I put .st2, then ST3 will have all the data copied into copied from the ST2. Okay, so let's run this and show you here. There you see. So name and roll number got customized. The CGPA from ST2 has got copied. And this is a common way of using, what to say, copying data from other structures, because structures might have multiple fields. Right now, a large number of fields, I'm sorry. Because usually what happens, right now for the example that we are using, we have deliberately kept the number of fields to be small for the sake of clarity and understanding. Okay. But practically in your production code, you might have, let's say, for instance, some resource which has got, maybe 10 or 15 different parameters, and you want to create another resource wherein just you are customizing 1 or 2 parameters and rest all of it is getting copied. So this shortcut works very well. Okay. Right. So let's see. We should assign the parameters as values. Shivakumar, I didn't get your answer. So essentially, I'm creating a new object. In object, how do you do initialization? You give the field name, colon. You don't give equal to. Right? You use the colon symbol inside the initialization. I hope that's what you are asking. Can another structure ST4 have only name and roll number without CGPA? Okay, so Abdul, what happens is that when you copy or when you create a structure ST4, you need to create a new structure, okay? Or if you are creating a structure of type student, it is mandatory that you give values to all the fields, okay? You cannot create a variable without a certain field. If at all there is a need to do so, let's say, okay, then in that case, you'll have to create a new structure type and then use that, which does not have a CGPA, only has name and roll number. Okay. Good job, Abdul. Shiva, does that answer your question? Shivakumar? Okay. Now the next concept that we are going to look into is methods, which are basically structure implementation groups. Okay. So we already have this student in here, right? So let me just copy this also and put it over there. Okay. This time around, what I want is that I'm going to create a structure instance, let's say. Okay. So let's copy the code from the previous case. Okay, so I have created this structure. Okay. And what I want to do is that I want to associate a function that works on this student object, student type. Okay. So to do that, okay, if we put dot dot inside the brackets, inside the student, you'll get all fields. Yes, that's true. So Singaram, you get all the fields, okay? But if you're given any other fields, like for instance here, you see here, you get all the fields, but only those which have not been customized. Okay, so the fields for which the values you have given, that they will be dropped, and only the fields for which the values you have not given, they will be copied. So suppose if I don't give these two lines and I just put inside this curly braces dot dot st2, all the data from st2 will get copied. Okay. So I want whether the student has passed or not. So one way is I can write an independent function. Okay. But it makes sense that this is going to test the student object only, right? So I would like to create a function that is associated with the student object or student type. And that is where the implementation block comes. Okay. I can say IMPL student. And here I can define functions. Okay. So I can say FN is passed. Okay. So if you create a student, okay, so as you can see, I'll just show you the so you want to create an implementation block. So this is called as implementation block. That means you're creating methods which are associated with the student. So it should have the same name as the struct type. Okay. And the first argument should always be self. Okay. So I want to say whether the student is passed or not. So, and I want to return a Boolean. Okay. And let's say the condition is that the CGPA should be more than, let's say 1.5. Okay. So when you want to pass in this, when you want to do that, all you need to do is, so if you see here, okay. So you can say self dot, and then you can check. So CGPA is greater than 1.5. Okay. That's it. Now again, remember, I'm using a tail expression. Okay. So I'm not putting up a semicolon here. Okay. So what happens? I am associating this this function with the student type. So whenever you have it like this, the first argument should always be reference to the same object. Okay. Same object. Okay. So how do I use this? It's pretty simple. Okay. Now, then say, okay. Incline, and I say, okay. Yes. Passed, whether he has passed or not. And how do you check this? You say st1 dot, and then you say is passed. Okay. So because CGPA is 3.5, so the student has passed, right? So if I somewhere something, right. One line got missed. Okay, and I don't need to have it as mutable because I'm not mutating it. Okay, right. So you can see how good the compiler is. It saw that nowhere I'm changing the value, so it has asked me to drop the mute key. Okay, that's the power of Rust. You see here, the student has passed is true. And now if I change this to say 0.5, okay, and I run this, the student passed is false. So you can actually create methods which are associated with a student type using implementation block. Okay, but remember all the functions they are defining here, these are now called as methods. Rust has this concept terminology that is, it uses method as this as the what to say, name for functions which belong to a certain type. Okay, right, any question here? Okay, there is also another commonly used pattern which I want to show you. You can always return okay, you can always return an object of the same type as the type for which the implementation is. Okay, that is also possible, and these functions can also take in the what to say, parameters. Okay, right, and there is so a similar concept to this. Okay, now remember one thing, when you're defining the function inside this implementation block, you put the reference to self. Okay, but when you're calling the function, you do not pass this as an argument. It is implied. It is automatically implied. Okay, header self means reference to the current object itself. Okay, so this is very similar if you're coming from Python background. When you write Python classes, the class methods always have self as the first parameter, right? So this is that same set of concept. Okay. Right. So another concept which is similar to this is what is called as a trait. Okay. So let me just so traits actually work very similar to like you have interfaces in Java. Okay. So basically, if you see this implementation block, it has got functions which are here. So this function is passed is associated with the student type only. Okay. Student type only. Right. Now, if you want to return the type for which the implementation block is, so you can do that. Actually, let me just show you here. Okay. So, for instance, I want to create another function. And let's say something that returns a self. So let me think. Let's say I want to return. I need to find an appropriate to do that. Okay. Okay. Let's say I'm actually thinking what so let's see. Create let's create. I mean, it's a hypothetical situation just to show you the functionality. Okay. Create. Let's say lowercase student name. No, I know this is a bad example, but yeah, the functionality is what we want to. And what it does, it returns type called self. So when you say self, it means it will return the same type for which the implementation block has been defined. Okay. Like so. Okay. So you see there is the self keyword there. Okay. And what we're doing here, let's say, so how to do that? So instead of saying student itself, I can always say self, and then I can give all the parameters. Right. So what I do is I take self, and also I customize the name. So self dot name. So name is self dot name dot lowercase. Okay. Cannot use a comma. No, wait. After the base string. Oh, I'm sorry. No. The base string must always be, let's see what it says. The last field. Yeah. So the field customization has to be done beforehand. So basically what it means is that you have to bring it down, put a comma here, and let's see. Must have expected Struct student and found this. Okay. Okay, so dereference it because it's a reference. So dereference it, you'll get the structure, and only the name is good. So now what I can do is I can say, okay, let st2 is assigned st1 dot. Okay. st1. Yeah, actually the language server didn't update it. Okay. So let st2 is assigned st1 dot lowercase 1. Okay. So now if I print both these, okay, so let's say print line st2 is st2. Okay. And then we run this. So you see in st1, the name is ABCD. It is uppercase, right? So see there, ABCD in lowercase. So you can return the same type as the implementing block by using this keyword self. Now, why keyword self? Because otherwise, actually, you can write student also here. And you can write student also here. Okay. In both these cases, self with a capital S. But the problem would be that if you did like that, and tomorrow you want to change the name of the implementation, structure of the block, you'll run into a problem. You'll have to make changes in so many different places. That's the reason this is a shorthand, okay, alias for the structure itself. Yes, I see there's one question. Actually, got described in the class, sir. In line 142, why we use dot self? This is the use of dot self. So Shreya, I think this is for copying the data. Okay. And you can go through the video again. So I cannot repeat this again for the paucity of time. Okay. I'm really sorry about that. Okay. And you can put this question in Discord and Deepak Chaudhary will get back to you. Right. Now, so the other concept that we are going to talk about is what's called as traits. Okay. So these traits actually define shared behavior for multiple structs. Okay. And guess what? They are similar to Java interfaces or interfaces in general. So instead of saying Java interfaces, you can just say interfaces. So basically, just like you can have, and guess what? So this implementation block is associated with a specific type, right? But if you want to create an implementation block, and you can have multiple implementation block for the same type also, that is also possible. Okay. Like, for instance, you can put this function in IMPL student. You can put this function in a different IMPL student. It will work just fine. Okay. Now, they are similar to interface. So with interface, what happens is multiple structs will have the same implementation. But the logic might be different. Okay. The logic might be different. So let's say I define two different structs. Okay. So let's define a struct called Boeing. Okay. And we say that for Boeing, let's say Model is a string, and range is an I64 or I32. Okay. Right. And I define another structure, Airbus. Okay, this is also having model and range. Okay, but these are two different structures. Okay, string and range is I32. So there are two different structures, and there's the fields are exactly the same. Okay. Now I define. So now what happens is, I want to define one single, like say for instance, whether the flight is valid. Let's say flight is, flight is allowed. Okay. So I want to create an implementer for both these. So one way is actually you can create two different, implementation blocks, but there is the same function which is to be used with both the different structs. That's where traits actually comes into play. So I'll give a brief introduction to the trait itself. Okay, so if you see here, we'll come down in here. Okay. Okay, so how do you create? So use the IMPL. Okay, trait syntax was straightforward. So this is how you do it. Just create an IMPL without a name. So it is not bound, okay, to any specific type. So I just say, okay. And let's call this implementation block as flight. Okay. So this is neither associated with Airbus nor Boeing. It's a different type altogether. Okay. So you see when they define this IMPL blocks. Okay. Let me see. So, say for instance, defining a trait, okay. Implement a trait on a type. So basically you create implementation, and then summary for news article, and implementation summary for a tweet. Okay. Implementing a trait on a type is similar to implementing regular methods. Right? So what will happen basically is that you are creating an implementation called summary. One for the news article, one for the tweet type. And see the implementation block, the name is exactly the same. So I'll create an implementation flight going. Okay. And you can see here. So you have this summarized, and the trait is defined like this. So you have to create a trait. So let's create a trait in here. For flight. And here I say that this flight rate is just like interfaces. Let's say, okay, I have a function. Okay, and let's see here. So we'll define a function and then its return type. So valid flight, and what it does, it takes in a distance. Okay, which is I32 and returns a Boolean. Okay. So now I'm saying that, okay, this is a trait called flight. So I'll say, okay, now I want to implement flight for the Boeing. Okay, now let's say the rules are that the distance, okay, you see generally what happens is with flights, what happens is there is this range, okay, and the range plus certain amount of buffer distance, okay, is what is actually used as the let's say as the validity criterion, because it needs to have some amount of reserve fuel, right? So what we can do is we can say, okay, so for Boeing, let's say it is 300 miles or 300 kilometers, whatever. And for Airbus, it is, let's say, 400 kilometers. Okay, so I define this. So I'll say, okay. Then valid flight and distance, and I say, okay, what you need to do is you have to return that and you can see, oh, sorry, I didn't put reference. Okay. So I put a reference to this self type, and when you're defining it, you have the self type. And so we say self dot range, let's say plus, let's say this is for Boeing, it is 300 miles. It should be greater than the distance. This is the validity criteria. Okay. And similarly, I have implementation flight. Okay. For Airbus. Valid flight. And say self dot range plus 500. This should be the distance. Right. So I have the same trait which is implementing for two different, types, for Boeing type and for the Airbus type, because the rules are different. For Boeing, it is 300, say, let's say, nautical miles, and say for Airbus, it is 500 nautical miles. And now you can create okay. So we'll create a Boeing object. So let Boeing is assigned Boeing, and I set the say model is, let's say, 747. Okay. Dot string and range Again, remember, this is all hypothetical, okay? So let's say it is 1,500. Okay. And let there was inside there was and model, let's say, is A320 dot string and range, let's say the range is 2000. Okay. And now I can say, okay, so let's define say, so if I say front line Boeing here, going there, and let's say what is the rule? So for Boeing, the range plus 300 should be greater than distance. And what is the range we have defined for Boeing? The range is 1,500. So 1,500 plus 300. So it should be greater than. So it should be the range should be distance minus 300. So basically, how much is it? 1,200. Okay. So let's say 1,000 kilometers. Okay, distance. So front line, say Boeing flight for 1,000 kilometers. Is valid. Okay. So the distance I'm taking it as the 1,000 kilometers, right? So I'll say Boeing dot, and I can say valid flight, and the distance I'm setting it as. Okay. So will it be valid? So if you see here, it will be valid. It's true. Okay. Now for the Airbus, what I'll do the same thing. Airbus, and for the range is 200. So if I give, say, 2,200 kilometers for Airbus, so obviously the flight will be, validity will be false. Oh, sorry. That's just
Selva sir, are you saying something? We can't.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. That's fine. Consider annotating Airbus with the Itera debug. Okay, I have to use a Itera debug here. I actually got muted, so that was the issue. Okay, so I need to put this annotation on the second one. Because the first derived debug is associated with this structure, so I'll have to do it. Okay. Okay, so now if I run this, see. Okay, so distance 2200. Airbus not valid. Let's put this as 2600, something like this. And then run this. Yeah, it turns out to be false. And this one is true. So now you can, so if you see here, they look very, so these traits are pretty similar to the interface, but semantically and syntactically, they are very different. Okay. Right. So let's see. When I was assigning, I found that triple equal operator is not, yeah, it is not supported, Abdul. There is no such triple equal to operator there. Okay, guys, so that's it from my side. If you have further questions, you can actually, use the Discord.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So it stretched a little bit more today, but that's fine. I think we were discussing some really critical things. So guys, if there are any questions, you can address.
Deepak, we can't hear you.
Sir, I think we just had the same pitch moment where I was speaking on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, so Selva sir, thank you very much for the insightful session. So guys, first of all, make sure that you ask all the questions, and if you have any doubts, feel free to put it in the Q&A chat, or you can just put your questions on the Discord server as well. Now this is that time of the session where you will start with your quizzes. So guys, just one side note, when you participate, I'll be sharing both the links, which will be of the quiz and also
The assignment.
of the assignment. Yeah, so focus on the quiz. Assignments will be open until the next session, so you can do the assignments later on. So let me just share the quiz first. Yeah, so here we go. That is the link for the quiz. We'll also put the link for the assignment. All right. Yeah. So save this. So a lot of you have been asking on Discord if they can get the link for the assignment. Somebody asked today during the session to get the link of the assignment link, which we did last time. So guys, that's not how it works. We have to do it. The links will be shared live, and you have to be in the session to get the assignment link. Otherwise, it serves no purpose. Yeah, so let the fun begin. Start attending the quiz. It will be open for next 20-25 minutes. Utilize the time to the best of your capability.